Ryan,
Well,
they prefer the term little people. You can't call them that.
all right. Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. Tonight we have Mark Ribke, we have Tiger Schultz, myself, Ryan Dixon, and as always, this show is sponsored by Primer & Co. So check out primerandco.com for all your 2A shooting apparel. So t-shirts and hats and cool mugs and all that jazz. So tonight, we're doing a topic, I'm calling it Run and Gun, Past, Present, and Future. So, and I don't know if that we're going to get into super and like the actual complete birth of Run and Gun, because none of us have been around that long. Tiger's been around the longest. Me and Mark started about the same time. We'll kind of share our experiences, but I thought it would be interesting to talk about kind of what our experience has been with it, like where it came from, and maybe trends that we're seeing, and the direction that it seems to be going in, and maybe even some speculation like the direction we'd like to see it going. This is obviously all opinion, and I think the great thing about Run and Gun is that there's not like a governing body like USPSA, and that can be good or bad. You know, there's nothing wrong with a governing body, but because of there's no governing body, the direction is kind of what the shooters and the match directors want. You know, match directors put matches on, and either people show up and shoot them, or they say they did a bunch of stupid crap last year that we didn't like, and we're not shooting that match again. And that's how these sports fall. So we've seen that with like Outlaw 3-Gun. I think even USPSA, even with the governing body, there are matches people, you know, pay, kind of vote with their feet, and they shoot them or they don't. So yeah, let's get this started. So Tiger, actually, I'm going to go out order. Why don't you tell us your start in Run and Gun, because you've been in this the longest?
Well, I think I actually started the same match you did, but I've done a lot more of them since then.
Okay.
March 2017, with Matt Stennett, the 3-Gun for Vets, was the first one east of the Mississippi. Happened, so I guess I have a day on you over technically, but
Okay.
we went down there and did that one. Had a good time at that. Since then, I was actually counting them up. We're doing this tonight. I've done 28 different running guns in the last 4 years. I've RO'd 25 of them, and I've match directed 3 of them. So, so I've got a lot of experience in it. I haven't been down to the Texas ones, so if any of the guys from Texas or watch this, then they'll probably say, well, I probably haven't done a real running gun. I have been to Pawnee one time, did the 15K out there. That was a cool deal, and we'll talk about that some more later. But yeah, 28 in the last 4.5 years. And I haven't done any this year because of grad school, and I'm missing a bunch, and I'm looking forward.
All right. Yep. So I'll kind of go next here, and Mark and me. Yeah, as Tiger said, I didn't know that was his first one. Matt Stennett's first Run and Gun back there in, what did you say, 17?
Yep.
Yeah.
But so that was my first Run and Gun, and since then, and now I did that one, and there was kind of a lapse of a couple years, and a lot of that was I was still shooting a lot of 3-Gun, and I had friends shooting 3-Gun, and so I just kind of, if I had a weekend free for a major match, I did a 3-Gun match. So it didn't, not that I didn't enjoy that first one, but it didn't kind of capture my interest as much then as it does now. So Mark, do you kind of want to add anything to that?
Nope. I was there at the first one with you guys, and then I think I've only done somewhere between a dozen or two, or not a dozen, half dozen to a dozen, somewhere in there, maybe 8. I don't know, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on, well, that first one and then I've done 2 zombies, and then 1 Legion, 1 Guardian, and 1 Heart. So I'm at 6. I'm a half dozen. So most of those in the last 2 years. So I'm picking up the pace on that. All right. So next thing, where we personally started with this. So and kind of the motivations behind that. For me, and I think maybe I'm a little bit different than some of the other run and gunners, but because I'm not so much into like the tactical or that kind of aspect of it, but it was kind of another form of competition to me. I enjoy the challenge of trying to compete in shooting when you're really tired, and especially more recently, it was kind of good excuse to, hey, get yourself into better shape, because you talk about it and you know you kind of need to get yourself in better shape, up your cardio, and it's sometimes hard to get that motivation. So run and gun kind of kicked my motivation back off. So I know last year I did Legion. Well, the first time back after the very first run and gun was Tiger's zombie match, and that was a good time. And I did okay at it. It wasn't amazing. I was running a lever gun, and which is not ideal. But the Legion last year, I was running through the summer and kind of doing okay, but I ended up placing, I want to say, 9th in the 5K in the light fighters division, which was like, that's one of probably my highest placement to date in a major match. And so I'd been doing some running, and I kind of refocused on like what I wanted to do as far as like, keeping control of my heart rate and leveraging the fact that I shoot better than a number of running gunners. So that kind of really kicked it off. I did well there, and I thought, well, heck, if I could actually do well at these, I should put more effort into it and train a little bit more. And so I've been running and that sort of thing. But I think that's kind of my motivation behind it, is just progress my skills in shooting and progress my my health at the same time. So how about you, Mark?
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about the stories we tell ourselves, like why did we get into it, kind of thing, and it sounded fun. Obviously, it's like, hey, you get to run through the woods with guns. Like the joke I have with my friends is like, if you told your 12-year-old self you were doing this, would they be impressed with you? It's like, yeah, you got a rifle and a pistol and a whole bunch of ammo, and you're running through the woods. Like, yeah, they'd tell you you're doing awesome. So I think that's one. Like, it sounds cool. Um, I think at the time we used to say that this is really the most practical of all the shooting sports we do. Like maybe IDPA is more realistic, but when are you going to get your heart rate up there and run through the wood? Like not maybe not practical. Like shit hit the fan maybe, or excuse me, SHTF if we're going to be family friendly. But like this is, if you're going to need your rifle, it's going to be Red Dawn, and you got to be able to run and shoot rifle and shoot pistol, or maybe it was like a commando thing too. It's like when Legion came along, they're like, do you want to hang out with the 5th group guys? Do you want to see how your shooting compares? Can you keep up with the cardio? So I mean, there's a lot of the cool guy stuff that I think kind of appealed to me, and I'm not afraid to admit it, that it's that cool guy stuff still is cool to me. The other thing, if you kind of think about it too, it's a lot of bang for your buck in terms of amount of time you're actually doing something. And like you as PSA, you shoot 5 stages and you shot for a minute and a half, maybe. 3 gun, you get maybe 8 minutes, something like that. This, you're out there for 2 hours for a 5K, maybe. You're always doing something. You're active at least.
You're
the
out there
whole
for
time.
2 hours.
Well, the wait times, of course. My run would only be a half hour, but it's the hour and a half of wait, right? No, it's something, there's something going on, I guess, that is kind of appealing. So there's a lot of different things that I guess appeal to me. I can't pin down one of them, but I think there's a lot of things. So.
Yeah, and before oh, yep, go on, Tiger.
No, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I was just gonna say, kind of the Marks thing. That is something I sometimes regret at running guns. Like you see, we run through some beautiful parts of the country, and there are times where like I'm running this race and I just want to stop and like check out a tree or check out this cool brook, or like Heartbreak you're running through and there's like rock outcroppings and like little cave areas, and like I'm racing, I want to do well here and I'm enjoying it, but like I guess I'm a 12-year-old boy at heart. Like there's nothing more fun than just kicking around the woods, looking at stuff and like finding cool terrain, especially woods you've not been in, and just kind of kicking around and having fun. Like I still live for that. So you can go on, Tiger, talk about your kind of motivation.
Yeah. Well, it kind of started out for me. I was in the military, and we got to do some of that cool guy stuff, right? Like some of the cool guys, but I did a little bit of it. I did just enough of it to make me feel like I was a cool guy. And then whenever I saw this event, I was like, oh, that looks like something that, would be kind of fun. Like you said, 12-year-old self says, hey, go run around in the woods and do that. And, the shit hits the fan thing. Like, yeah, that's legit. And you do feel like, kind of Billy Badass. Oh, I just hiked 10 clicks carrying 40 pounds of gear and obstacles, and I shot 300 rounds because I'm a shitty shooter, and like, and like, it's, you guys know there for a while I did the mule thing, and that was to kind of keep up with that end of the world scenario for me, because I had little kids, right? I had 2 little kids that came out to about 100 pounds, so I wanted to know if I could hike 10 clicks and carry 100 pounds. And then after that, it kind of got to be my shtick, and then I hurt myself, and then it hasn't been my shtick since then because I was tired of being an idiot. But, now, 28 events in, I do it as much to go and hang out with the community as I do anything else. Ryan talked about keeping you in shape. Yeah, I haven't done a running gun this year, and I've gained 25 pounds. Because I haven't had anything to train for. I haven't had anything, I've sat around, I've drank a lot of these, I've, eaten a lot of tasty cakes and, whatever. I went and visited at Guardian. I had some business to do, and I just went down and hung out for a little bit. And I really miss that community and that culture. So now that's as much of a reason to, either run Zombie or to go to Legion or go to Heartbreak. It's to see all the guys that I only see 5 or 6, 7 times a year, Of course, we're every day, but it's fun to, see each other and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from now, is it's much, and I think that's a lot of the shooting sports. If you're not having fun with your friends, why are you out there,
Absolutely. I mean, I just said in the last episode, the wrap up to Great Lakes, like there was a ton of 3-gun people that I've talked to online all the time, and I just haven't had a chance to hang out and talk with them, and met some new ones, people that I've known online and finally got to meet in person. And man, the shooting community is really, really good people. I mean, in 3-gun and running gun, like in the 7-8 years I've been doing this, I could maybe count up on one hand people that like I'd rather not squad with or hang out with. I mean, it's pretty small amount of people. All right, so we're gonna go on, and we kind of hit what we personally think about it. So let's kind of hit the current state of run and gun. And one thing that Mark said, and this is something we've all kind of talked about before, is so a lot of people do this as training. The one thing I enjoy about running gun over like 3-gun is that you can go to a running gun and you have people running all kinds of different gear. Many of them, they're running it because they want the challenge. So generally at a 3-gun match, even people that have no chance of winning the match are still using gear, picking gear, doing things that gives them the best chance of winning the match. They know they're not going to, but I want to see how high I can get. So I'm going to use the best rifle, the best shotgun, the best, whatever that is for you. And in run and gun, there are those people because it's competition. You got guys that want to win, but you do have a pretty strong selection of people, and some of these even have a chance at winning and sometimes do, but that are running gear because that's what they run. That's just what they want to run, whether it makes sense or not. Or like, this is my, shit hits the fan rifle. This is my whatever. They're just trying to, they want to challenge themselves. I'm going to do this whole thing with a bolt gun because it's that much harder. So, there is that, people trying to vet out gear. This is my carry gun. I'm going to run it because I want to see if it can last through everything. So in that practical sense, if you look at the current state of it, you sometimes wonder how much of what match directors and matches are doing makes sense to that. We've talked about, in a whatever situation you think, people rarely are running 3 miles at a time or 6 miles. The running part, probably not realistic for like a shit hits the fan. Now, on the flip side of that is that the reason you're running is to increase your heart rate and see how you're going to shoot with an elevated heart rate. So another kind of current state, a lot of matches are doing physical task right before you shoot. So you're picking up a sandbag and doing sandbag get-ups, or moving a sandbag, or moving logs, or stuff like that. I guess, what do you guys think? Does that seem pretty on par for like kind of the current, like some of the current trends?
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of always been that way too, though. If you go way back to the very first one that we did, you had to drag that stupid dummy for 15 or 20 yards, and that thing was no less than 100 and, they'll tell you it's 170. I don't know. It was over 100 for sure, though. And so, but in the real world, if things go down, you're gonna have to drag your buddy out of whatever. Okay, but so that kind of makes sense. But you have to be fair and say that we were doing stupid stuff like that in the beginning. And I guess I'm already qualifying it with stupid. We were doing physical things from the beginning.
Yeah, I don't want to suggest that they're not. I just, in the last 2 years that I've been doing this more, it seems like it's getting a little more regular, and maybe
Right.
weights and things are getting a little bit more.
Right. So yeah, it's like, well, one thing that we can talk about, and we'll talk about, is the idea of like, is hard what match directors want, or is hard what shooters want? Like, do they, we're both wearing Heartbreak shirts. Heartbreak is just miserably hard, and it's known for that. And so, is that what they're trying to sell now? They want to just keep upping the bar, and other matches are also want to compete with that because they don't want, well, your match is fun, but Heartbreak's the really hard one. No one wants to hear that if you're a match. Maybe you don't care. I don't know, but there's just as much of an ego thing with match directors as there is with competitors. So I don't know. I think, yes, you're right. I'm seeing a lot more of the physical stuff, but you could even kind of tie it back to like two gun without the running. The joke there is like, are you going to have the kettlebells, or should I bring my own kettlebells for this match? It's like, sure, okay, yeah, you got your heart rate up, your arms are fatigued, now do your shooting thing. Okay, I mean, it's fine. That's a thing that happens in the real world. Your arms get tired, and even kettlebell pickups. If you think of picking up an ammo can and putting it on the roof of a Humvee, that's a typical military task. I mean, okay. So I don't know. It comes down to, what are we doing? And what's the point of this? And we already talked about it. Some of it is that military fantasy, that end of the world fantasy. So sure, make it hard. And then you'll know if you would have really cut it when the zombies started biting. On the other hand, if you want to just see how well you can do a 5K and shoot some action shooting stages, yeah, okay, I'll carry some cinder blocks too, whatever you want. Like, I don't know how to. I've never not gone to a match because of the physical stuff in it. but at the same time, it's like I don't say like, oh, you mean we get to swim this one? Yeah, I want to sign up for that. Like that doesn't excite me particularly, but maybe some people it does, and I'm sure some people it does. Now that I say that, so I don't know, Tiger, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the head with where it's at now. I will disagree with Ryan on one thing. You talk about not running and shit hits the fan. Yeah, you might not run 3 miles or 5 miles or whatever, but if it goes down forever, yada yada yada, cars are down, whatever. My dad's house is 8 miles away, right? Like, and if I have to hike that, like, that's a thing that I've hiked it. I've hiked it. I've hiked there back because I wasn't hiking back. But
yeah, no. I definitely,
point,
I definitely didn't want to suggest that. I didn't want to suggest that there's not going to be movement at some distance, but like we've got some guys at these running guns that are finishing the 5K running gun, like running, shooting, everything in 40 and 50 minutes. That part is probably not. That's not, I'll say tactically, I'm not the expert at all this, but I don't think just like flying through the woods at, 8-minute miles, 7-minute miles is probably the ideal way to get from one place to the other. So that's the only thing I meant about that.
Yeah. And if you got, like, say my neighbor that's 2 miles down the road, his house was burning down and it was shit hit the fan and I had to run there, I would run as I could, but I'm probably also not stopping to get into a firefight. Like, there's some, I would run there and do that task, and then come back. But so there's some of all of that, and to kind of go to what Mark's talking about too. I'm the same way. I've never looked at a match and said, hey, I get to climb a 35-foot ladder at this one, so that's the match I want to go to, or hey, I get to do the Stairway to Heaven and Heartbreak, I get to do that, so I'm going to sign up for that. No, fuck that. Like, but at the same time, like, as a match director, right, you talk about MD, like, and we've talked about it before, I've tried to figure out the special sauce to get people to come to Zombie. And at Zombie, I kind of get away from all of that hard physical stuff, and I kind of pitch it as a beginner-friendly. I have the 22 match on Sunday and the 5K and an option and all that, and I try to make it accessible to people. And I've had a few people who have really thanked me for that, and then I have other guys who are like, man, I kind of wish it was harder. The physical stuff really didn't challenge me, and I'm like, yeah, but how'd you shoot? And they're like, well, I was 30th in shooting, and I was like, well, shoot better, there's always something, right? Like I look at Zombie and it's a little bit more technical shooting. Like it's a little bit more smaller targets, maybe some further distances, pistol shooting, get some small stuff in there and things like that. And that's kind of the current state of running gun to me. It really has its own flavor. And right now is a really good time to be a running gunner because there's matches once or twice a month somewhere in the country. Jimmy Nutt posted a schedule here a while back of what he was going to do, and he had like 12 matches in the last 6 months of the year, and I'm like, holy crap. So you can really pick and choose. Okay, well, I don't want to go to Heartbreak because it is so physically hard. I just want to go have a good time and shoot. So maybe I'll do the gun run or whatever. It's a 5K. It's maybe a little bit easier on the ammo. It's a lower round count. I'm crunching for ammo right now. So right now you have a really good balance of everything if you spread it out amongst all of the events. But I am seeing some more of that one-upmanship of, hey, Heartbreak was this hard, so Legion's got to be this hard, so then Guardian's got to be this hard, so then, and we'll get to that whenever we start talking about what the future of running gun is going to look like. But right now it's a good time to be a running gunner. It's a good time to be an action shooter that likes to do 5 and 10Ks because there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe we've probably already got some people screaming at their phones or computers or whatever they're consuming this on. A lot of what we're speaking of, we're kind of, in this northeast of the country, and this is kind of what we're seeing there. I don't see a lot of what's going on down in like Texas and Oklahoma, and I do kind of see a little bit coming from like the South, like the gun run stuff. So, these trends here may not be the same as in Texas or Missouri. Matt Loganville does a couple, one or
Right.
two a year. So, these are just we're speaking what we're seeing here in the Northeast ish part of the country. So,
Yeah.
kind
And
of keep that in
Pawnee
mind.
has changed it. Pawnee really hasn't. They've changed the stages some, but the course has been the same for 10 years. They haven't had any obstacles. And they do 2 a year, and they sell 50, 60, 70 tickets every year or every event, so it's and out there people are like, well, the terrain is the obstacle, and I'm like, yeah, you're in Oklahoma, calm down, the terrain's not that bad.
Now, you may know this a little bit better. Was Pawnee the original one? That kind of as original as far
No.
as okay. Was that or where was that at? Was that
Pecos.
Texas? Okay, that's it.
Pecos,
I thought it began with a P.
Pecos, Texas, the first one. Pawnee was number 2, but Pecos does 1 a year, sells 45 or 50 tickets. I don't remember what it is. That's all it is. There's no like accommodation. You go, you shoot a 5K, you're done. Like that's all it is. Like it's still to the original spirit of the run and gun. They haven't changed in 20 years, and that's one I hope to get to one day, because it is, it'd be kind of like a pilgrimage to go and see what the original run and gun kind of looks like. But guys out there, man, they're cowboys. They don't run shot timers. They don't, they say it's not the Olympics. Get over it. Suck it up. Whatever you got to do to get to the finish line is what you do. And and they're a fun group of guys though, and they can shoot. I will give them that. They all run M1A1s M1As and Mains and Garands and all kinds of stuff, and they outshoot a lot of dudes with ARs, so they're doing something right.
Yeah, and if anyone's interested in that, I know I've read it before. If you Google Pecos run and gun, they have like kind of a short history on the birth of that, and any of this stuff kind of a lot of times sprouts up from a couple different places, so like they're kind of the first. I'm guessing if you really start asking around and look around, someone was running a run and gun type event maybe before, after, and never had heard of that. So all this stuff kind of springs up organically on its own. But that's
right.
An interesting. That's definitely considered the OG of run and gun. So again, this is what we're seeing in the Northeast. So and one thing we've talked about recently is water. Traditionally, they'd have some like creeks you'd cross, maybe get your feet a little bit wet, and I know Legion has had like a little bit more of a water crossing, and out west, I've seen some pretty sketchy looking water crossings, where you're holding onto a rope and getting across. Just recently, Guardian had a swim. They had a rope going across, and you and your gear swam across, or you had a 15-minute penalty from it. So, that again, we talked about one-upsmanship. I don't know that you can do more than a swim. As far as getting people wet. You guys got it, Mark? You got any ideas? How can we one up a swim?
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to fast rope out of helicopters, and or just as far as water goes. Well, so we could talk about this too. Like, how much pre-match intel should you have? So gamers, not naming anybody in particular, brought trash bags stripped down to their essentially underwear and put all their stuff in a bag and then swam across. And so their shoes weren't wet, their socks weren't wet when they got to the end because they had their beach towel and they took off their flip flop. And Ryan,
They were
specifically-
jorts. They were I wore my jorts in. I didn't get to my underwear, but the jorts weren't much longer than my underwear, so.
So like the idea is, yeah, let's get them wet. We'll make them fully swim. But no part of you like you took time out of your run to stay dry. You stayed dry, and then you had no problem with it. So it kind of took away some of the spirit of it, in a sense, I think.
Yeah, I think I would rather, instead of swim with Intel, I think I'd rather have a decent creek crossing that was going to happen. That, I say decent, I'm talking about like maybe up to your waist for the smaller statured shooters, but most of them put a rope across so you don't. But I think something like that. My problem with water is always you've got guys running like these weight divisions, running 40-pound packs and stuff like that. And that's a lot of weight if you start to, you hit a deep spot or, something washes out under your feet and you go in. That's a lot of weight to be fighting around in the water with.
People definitely could have drowned. I mean,
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
For sure.
Well, and the way, to be fair, the way Guardian did it, they had a lifeguard, had someone there. They had a rope with like a harness. So I think drowning was pretty low on the list of possibilities. Anytime you're around water, certainly it is. But I think they did it in a pretty safe way. The ladders at Guardian were more sketchy than the water.
Yeah, so even there, like, let's talk about ladders.
And that kind of goes to goes.
Go ahead.
Sorry. That kind of goes to the goes back to the original thought, right? Like, if this is prepping you for a shit hits the fan situation, like, and I even said it on the Facebook page, like, I can think of 0 situations unless I'm actively getting shot at and come up to a river that I'm going to dive into water with all my gear on. Like, there is no situation that's going to happen. But like you said, I may come to a river and have to swim across. Like, that might be the only way across the river. So yeah, strip down all your gear and all of that. So there's kind of but to your point of what can we do to one up it, I fully expect somebody to say, here's a 5-minute scuba mask, dive down to the bottom of this lake and pick up this 10-pound weight and bring it to the top, and at that point, that'll be one of those to go, yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's just dumb for the sake of dumb, but yeah, and I'll bounce ahead of Mark here a little bit. Let's talk about the ladders. Like, I have a wall at Zombie, and I one-upped everybody and made it bigger and slicker and all that, right? And I don't know that I'll have that again. Like, I may shrink the wall or make it out of some plaster or some, something that's maybe a little bit more. But the ladders, like, I've considered a 35 or a 40-foot hunting stand as part of the stage. Like, you climb up there and you've got to shoot out of this, tree stand. So maybe it's real, maybe it's not, maybe it's I don't know, like, maybe, but they put it in and people did it and nobody got hurt. So, knock on wood that seems to.
Man, I've been up in some 15 and 20-foot deer stands, and that's probably high enough for me. I don't mind heights, but man, those can be a little sketchy.
So
Yeah, those ladders were sketchy.
So going back to like the point of it, so talk about the A-frames at Rock Castle. Used to have A-frames. They had A-frames at Zombie. They have ladders at Heartbreak. All these and they're mostly just like, let's say 2-foot slats. Fairly big steps. and they're maybe, I don't know, 12 feet high at the tallest, 10 to 12 feet high. It's like, has anyone ever not made it over those? I mean, maybe somebody, but they're not that physically challenging, and they're not particularly scary. I will admit that when at Heartbreak the one year, when I got to the top of the one, I had to like tell myself, swing your leg over, because I was just so tired. But like, is that a physical challenge that's doing something to you that's going to affect your shooting, or is it just something so that we have obstacles? We have an obstacle. Like, okay, now compare it to, let's say, a rope ladder. Like, those are actually hard to climb depending on how it's fastened. Climbing a rope ladder, and that's difficult. You can argue there's some sort of practical reason that you'd climb a rope ladder versus finding something with 2-foot wood slats. Like, I don't know if there's a point, but everyone seems to have ladders. Why do we have ladders? Well, the first match had ladders, so I had to put in some. Maybe there's a better reason for them that I don't know. But
well, and I want people to know, like, I don't want us to sound like we're poo-pooing a lot of this stuff, because we enjoy these matches, and I enjoy the physical. I enjoy the obstacles that these do. I think we're just kind of thinking out loud and asking questions, is like, this is where we're at. What kind of direction do we want these matches to go in, personally and as a community, and what makes sense in a match for the goal that you have? So as a good example, Tiger's zombie match, he has a very specific goal with that match. And so he's not doing a lot of that. The Heartbreak guys, they're masochists. They want people to suffer. And so that is the sadist. That's the word.
Both,
yes.
Actually, because they do their own match.
Yeah, they do their own match. Yeah. So they have that they do, and for the credit, I don't know that like Heartbreak's gotten any harder. I don't think they've necessarily gone and added a bunch of, each year. The course maybe changes a little bit. I've only done it 1 year, but like the weather kind of is the wild card in making that, hard or easy. But so they're not necessarily like trying to one up every year. I mean, some of the physical challenges, I think with the Heartbreak Plus, they may add and make that a little bit more challenging. But yeah, we're not like, I think we enjoy this stuff, but it's just, we're asking questions. I know for me, like, I enjoy this. I don't want to see someone get hurt, because the first time someone breaks a neck falling off of a 30-foot ladder out in the woods is probably the last time that match is there. And then you have probably in some cases an overreaction where, like, a lot of the stuff we were doing now, we got to swing to being real conservative because you don't want to be the next match that hurts someone. So that's kind of my thing, is like, where's the line? We want to challenge people, but we don't want to hurt people. So where's that balance, and how does that balance affect our goal for this game, the sport, event, whatever you view it as?
Yeah, and that's the first Heartbreak had a ladder. It was like 14.5 foot tall, and it was a lot like the Guardian. It was us and all that, and that was while I was still running super heavy weights. And Todd Banis, we were driving around setting up obstacles, setting up stages and stuff, and he asked me, he said, "Hey man, how you gonna do that ladder?" Because I was carrying like 130 pounds on my pack. And I said, "Well, I guess I'm just going to climb up and over it, I guess I'm just going to go over it." And I got to the top, and I had swung my leg over, and it was just far that I couldn't touch with both feet. So there was going to be a little bit of a and I'm like, oh shit, how am I going to do this without this weight of this pack dragging me off this ladder? And this and that and the other. And I thought, well, guess you got to drop your pack. So I had 2 guns in it. I had my AK and my super RPR, like super expensive gun. And I unclip and try to drop it on the AK instead of the RPR, and pick it back on and, hate myself some more. And then I go and I shoot the next stage, and what's Alan Carmichael tell me? He says, hey, you're going to do this loop, and then you got to go through the obstacle course again. And I'm like, well, shit. So then I had to, then I had the plan, right? I had to climb up the ladder again, drop the pack over, do all that stuff a second time. But at that point, I knew it was safe and I could do it. And that's kind of what I was talking about too, with maybe scaling the wall back a little bit. I want some of that physical challenge, and I'll probably you'll climb up it on a shoot clock to use the top of it as a barricade or something. Try to kind of get that physicality in there as part of the stage. But the wall doesn't need to be an 8 foot tall. It was sided with linoleum. I could have oiled it and it couldn't have been any slicker, right? And that's unnecessary. Plenty of people, myself included, there's for anybody of me struggling with my fat ass to get over that wall. And there's no need for it, right? Lucas Oil has plenty of terrain feats that are going to physically challenge you, right? We go over a few fences. The cattle field messed with a lot more people than they thought it was. Walking through a cattle field is hard. You got to really watch your footing. And, of course, Soul Crusher Hill, got a bunch of people and everything. And there's a place for obstacles, right? There is, but maybe it's, like you said, maybe we've gotten to the point where we're doing it just because that's the way it's always been done, and maybe that needs to change in some events, As I said, that they're sadomasochists. They want it to be as physically shitty as possible, and that's their thing, and that's what people sign up for Heartbreak to do, and more power to them, go nuts with it. So we'll see what kind of comes out of all that in the future. Legion's the Green Beret for a day, it's all that fun stuff. So it's I'm curious to see where we do go, but I think that about before needs to maybe go back a little bit, because like I said, I can see somebody saying, yeah, you got to dive to the bottom of this pool, or you need to get in this bucket of ice to shoot. Somebody posted a 2-gun stage where they did that. They shot from a pool full of ice, and I'm like, yeah, that's that could be dangerous, right? And everything we do is dangerous, but that could be real dangerous. And if Heartbreak added a water obstacle, the 2 of the 3 years that I did it, it was 17 obstacle. I don't feel like dying of hypothermia today. So Guardian's a little different. It was 80 degrees in August. You're not going to die from it as long as you don't actually drown. So.
Well, and I mean, if anyone watches our kind of after action on Heartbreak this year, me and a handful of people that went out late in the day were, pretty close to hypothermic by the time we came in. I mean, it just got just cold enough and just wet enough, and, going through the obstacle course twice and you're covered in mud. I mean, that stuff sucks it doesn't have to be below freezing for your body to temp to drop, especially when you're covered in mud and water and everything else. So, and the same on the opposite end of the spectrum is heat. If we want to, I mean, some of those out there in Oklahoma and Texas, if you're trying to do 15 miles like that, or 15K, that's a long ways in some pretty hot heat, and you can bring a lot of water and still burn through that. So that's kind of a concern.
Quality dropped their 20K from the summer event because of that. They don't do a 20K anymore because a few years ago they almost lost guys like Rusty Trumbull and Sean Dave, some real studs almost died of heat exhaustion. They had to take a couple of them to the hospital, so they said, hey, that's not a thing anymore. So
well, yeah, and you can't control the weather, and so it comes, match day and it's 110 degrees with the heat index, and a lot of people overestimate, even if you're like Tiger said, even if you're a stud, you can overestimate your ability to deal with heat, because most of us don't do that day in and day out. And the other thing is with heat exhaustion, and even the same with hypothermia, is your brain, your body's taking blood from your brain, and so you are not thinking as clearly as if you didn't have it. So that's not helping your judgment. And there's a lot of these matches where in sections where nobody else is around. Heartbreak. If I would have keeled over, between the last stage and the house, like, people were around-ish, but you could pass out and be on the ground for 5 or 10 minutes, 20 minutes before anyone comes on you. So some of this stuff's rugged, especially if you lose your way and you're off course. So that's all a concern. So let's kind of go maybe our idea of the direction for the future. Like, what would we like to see? Our ideal match direction going forward. So, Mark, do you got ideas for that?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see a couple things. So, one, I'd like to see people try different things, like doing loops. Like, if it's a smaller range, I'd like to see this be in more places. So, like, one of the things we talked about, Ryan, the range you run now, is you can do almost a mile if you go around the outside edge of that range. And so if you did, one stage, a lap, another stage, a lap, another stage, a lap, and then do something like that, that'd be a new kind. Or up in Minnesota, I think they did it a couple times. They haven't done it in a number of years, but they did what they called the Trekker. And that one, you had 2 hours to do as many loops as you could. And then you scored points. You gathered points at each shooting stage. And so that was just kind of a different match format. So trying different things like that, just seeing what else you can do, I think would be interesting. Even, trying to work around the rules that constrain us. So like, maybe you can't run with guns at your range, but you can run and then come to the gun. Like, your guns are set up, you run, then you shoot, run, then you shoot, that kind of thing. Just get it to more ranges by working with what you can at those ranges. I think that'd be exciting to see what people come up with, because, necessity is the mother of invention. So when you say, hey, you want it to happen here, what is it going to take to make it happen? I think that'd be really neat. And then as far as, I think we'll continue to see more and more extreme stuff, which is fine. But I think if you're a new match director, I'd say like, ask anybody that's done run and gun, like, hey, we're going to do a 5K. You're going to shoot 5 stages of rifle and pistol. How does that make you feel? Everyone's like, yes, I'll sign up. Okay, just start with that. And then as you're designing it, say, hey, you may cross a chain link fence on your 5K run. That seems like a reasonable thing to add in. Just ask yourself, do I need to do this to add to my match? Or is it, am I trying to be gimmicky or something or am I trying to make my match something that it's not? Just start small. I think makes a lot of sense. And then I think I had one other thought, but I guess those are my big ones. I'd like to see it in more places. So do what you can do to make it happen, I guess, is the most exciting thing I can see for the future.
Yeah, and if you think of that other one, you can jump in. Tiger, you got, a lot. This means a lot coming from Tiger because he's a match director of these matches. So, what he's thinking is partially the direction for some of these matches. So what are some things that you're looking at doing in the future, Tiger?
I really, and I did it last year with Zombie, and I think talking, me and John Drossert, we did a number of individual matches where we hiked together, and we realized that, hey, that was a lot more fun than being out there, by yourself. Of course, neither me or him are in any danger of winning one, so we were able to do that. But it's a cool concept, right? Because if you're alone in a shit hits the fan situation or in a firefight, you're in a lot worse place than if you've got a buddy. right? Like it's always better with a buddy. I would like to see. I like.
We lose Tiger.
Stages.
Tiger, we're losing you a little bit.
I haven't heard him
Check,
since
check.
Buddy.
Check.
Yeah, you're coming in now.
Can you hear me now? Nod
Yeah.
your heads.
Yep, we can hear you.
There it is. Okay. All right. So everything's better with a buddy. You know, the other things I'd like to see are, you know, stage designs that really are interesting. You know, we've talked about it. We don't like staying in deliver stages. Sometimes they're necessary, but they're just, you know, they're kind of boring sometimes. I would like to, you know, to Mark's point, you know, there's a guy who does a run and gun in Europe, and he is hampered by, he has 2 concrete bunkers he has to shoot in. So he does 600 yards back and forth between these 2 concrete bunkers, and that's what you shoot, you know, but he wants to do one. So he puts Thursday twice a year, and he takes it, you know, more ranges, more types of matches. I like the team concept. I would like to see some other types of concepts, like not just shooting order, but me. You know, maybe you do a team match and everybody signs up as individuals, and hey, you roll the dice, and you know, but people are going to be mad about that because the fast guy's going to get a slow guy, or a slow guy's going to get a fast guy, or a good pistol shooter's going to get a bad. Because that's part of that match, right? You make up for your partner's weaknesses. You know, the biathlon style that Mark's talking about sounds really cool. I love the rimfire match that I do every year at Zombie. If I could run more rimfire matches, I would love to see that. Kids love them. Husbands of women shooters love them. Wives of male shooters love them. Like, everybody loves a 22 match, and they're easy to put on. And if you're considering match directing a running gun, but you don't think you've got a spot for it, that 22 match. They're just a lot easier. Is for me and for shooters as well. And if we could get, you know, if there could be 100 rimfire running guns in the country next year, that'd be the bomb for me.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of good ideas, and it's kind of been brought up, not directly, but one thing that hampers run and gun from becoming bigger than it is, and I think that main one is the running, because a lot of people don't like to run. So that we can't do anything about that. If you don't want to run, and even though most people walk running guns and don't run the whole entire time, there's still most Americans don't seem real interested in going 3 miles in a match, whether it's walking or running. So if those people, they're out. It doesn't matter what we do. But there's not really a local level for run and gun like there is most shooting sports. Most sports in general, you know, if you think if you play baseball and a traveling baseball team, you know, and even softball, you know, guys will, you know, there's traveling teams that, you know, at any age. You don't start by getting into that. You probably start when you're 10 or 5 or 6 at T-ball, and you work your way up. If you want to shoot USPSA, most people don't start at a state level match or the nationals or regional match. They start at their local club and they shoot that. And same with like 3-gun, but with running gun, that's really not the case. Like, if you want to do a running gun, you sign up for Legion or Guardian or, you know, Heartbreak or Zombie, whatever it is, and you just dive head first in. You know, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going all the way in. which is not a bad way to start. I mean, that's how everyone has started up to this point. But if there was ways to lead people into that, like, ideas like what Mark's talking about, or even the action two-gun matches, I think are a good kind of dip your toe in the water, because a lot of the stages and shooting and physical shtick stuff is all kind of the same. But I would see that being really, really beneficial. I know Ellis down south with the gun runs and stuff, he's having enough matches, and I haven't had a chance to get down there yet because it's kind of a hike for me. But I see a lot of matches on his schedule, and like Tiger was saying, they're like 5Ks, and there's a lot of variety to the matches. Like, he's almost doing that, So like they may be major matches. I don't know. Major's always kind of air quotes. What makes it a major match and not? Is it the number of people that show up? Is it the production level? Is it if they have a prize table? There's not really a straight definition, but like, he's having big matches that people are driving distance for, which is kind of what I would consider a major. And but he's having enough of these regularly that I think it's almost becoming that, like it's a little bit easier to dip your toe in it, because if you miss this month, you got one in a month next month or 2 months or whatever. So I'd kind of like to see that. I'd like to see match directors have a vision for what they're wanting their match to be, and not just be, let's try to one up the next guy. I don't think we've quite gotten to that point here, but I just worry that that's what's going to be like. I'd like to see the shooting challenges increase a little bit. This maybe, I know for some people this is probably blasphemy, and it depends on how they score matches. Some matches, when you don't complete a stage, you get a DNF. So did not finish, which is fine, and I don't really care how the match director scores it, because I'll shoot it regardless. I think the problem with DNFs is there's this balance you walk with how hard you can make your match, because if well, let me ask this question. Tiger, your long range stage last year, how many people completed that? Or percentage wise?
I think out of the 100 and some odd shooters, I had 19 do it. 19 or 20. It was right at 20%. Yeah, it was right at 20%.
So, and that's a good example. That was one stage, and this is, I'm not picking on Tiger's match because I love that match. That was one stage, so whatever. But if you really want to increase the shooting difficulty, and you have increased difficulty on every stage, and you have 20% success rate on each stage, it's going to be a really weird match. And, when you look at the stats, there may be this huge, it's just kind of a mess. If you do like a percentage where, okay, I didn't finish it, so I got up to this point, so I got a 60% or something, I think it becomes a little bit easier to score, but you can to my mind, you can more easily push the challenges. So yeah, not everyone completed it, but everyone still got points. And with DNF, you could be on the very last target and you don't get it. And that is the same as only getting a single target, because it's no points. It's zero, no matter what area you finish in that. And you can certainly argue real world that you either pass or you fail. Like I get that part. But I think if we're saying this is a training event, this is to test your skills, that doing percentage-based scoring and making stages a little bit harder, because honestly, like, I'm not just destroying all these stages, but there are times where I'll shoot a stage and it's like, yeah, I could have done that faster, and like the fast guys are doing a little bit faster than me, but there wasn't anything that really challenged me too hard, if that makes sense to me. Have you guys felt that in matches at all?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Oh, all right. So, yeah, maybe that's something I'd like to see, is make shooting a little bit harder, and kind of, look at how we're scoring these matches so that we can make shooting harder and not just have like a match where the top team completed everything and everyone else kind of had this mix of like, they completed one stage, so this guy's in second place. We're getting right at the hour, so do you guys have any more closing thoughts you want to add?
Yeah, I thought of my last thing, and I think this is a good wrap up. I want to see, let's push this to the extreme, not by adding stupid things like swimming, because that slows everything down. I've said this for years. What if we did mountain bike and gun, or dirt bike and gun? Like we can really see how fast you can do a 5K when you're on an enduro or something like that. Maybe not going to work in Kentucky, but what if we went out to like Utah and a big chunk of land out there, right? Or just hang in there with me. I might have just watched Blues Brothers last night, but what if we did a cannonball run between ranges? So you do your run, you shoot at that range, and then you race to the next range, do your stages there, race to the next range. That's your total time.
So we're making the sport more accessible by adding a $9,000 dirt bike or a $20,000 car.
Well, no. You can use whatever car you want. This is Cannonball. So you're going to follow all the speed limits because you are loaded down with guns and ammo. And that's between you and Johnny Law if you want to get caught speeding doing that. So, I mean, that's part of it's where do you want to game it, Ryan? This is like the ultimate gamer situation for you. So I'm just saying, when somebody has one of these matches, they're really going to sell out quick. That's all I'm saying. That's just, let's not rule anything out.
What you're saying is it's not quite that much, but Tiger, what's that big long range match or kind of precision match that just got pushed back a year? But do you know what I'm talking about? It's got a real high entry fee, and it's like,
yeah, it's like the Assassin Games or something like that.
Yeah,
like
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Mark's describing.
Like $500,000.
Yeah. I don't normally say this. I kind of feel weird saying this, but after Mark just talked, Tiger, can you say something that actually is like reasonable to end up in the show?
Yeah. So I'm gonna comment on a couple of things. That Ryan talked about with the scoring. Because you guys know I do DNS at Zombie, and to me, like you use my long range stage as an example, and it's a great example because I designed it to where I expect 70 to 75% to fail because everybody complains about it every year, and I'm like, hey, I give you 9 months advance notice on what the farthest target's going to be, and I put a freaking Chevy S10 hood out there, and like you really had no excuse. On the flip side, this year, and one guy who finished it on time, one dude, but everybody got points, so nobody bitched about it, right? Like, but to me, is the stage that 20% of the people passed and the rest of them got 0 points, or the stage where one guy passed and everybody got points. Which one's the better stage design, right? Like that's kind of, so yeah, you have to strike that balance, right? It's all about picking your balances, picking your I've said it before on individual gear, on training plans, that you got to pick your advantages, right? To kind of wrap up again, and I think the future is pretty bright for the sport. Whether it stays the size it is, whether it gets bigger, whether 10 years from now, it's the three of us, Matt Stennett, Mike Ford, and Todd Bandis out there, running in my fucking field, right? Like, whatever it is, right? I think it's a good sport. If you're listening and interested, feel free to message any of us. I will talk about running gun for longer than most people are willing to. But yeah, I think it's a good time, and I think we've got a bright future, and we're coming from a strong past, and that's kind of the state of things.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't think anyone wants this to be like USPSA. Like we don't want this to be this the sport that's happening every weekend, and it's not that kind of sport. Like it's always going to be niche, which is cool. But I agree. I'm looking forward to the direction it's headed. I mean, I'll say, and I don't know that this is any kind of secret. It's not out yet, a date, but I mean I've been working to try to throw a run and gun myself because I want to throw my hat in the ring, and I've got some ideas for what I think would be a fun run and gun, and another one here in kind of the Midwest. So I guess look out for that. But there's a lot of opportunity and this place that I'm going to do it at's not as big as some of the others, but I'm pretty positive we can get like a good solid 5K course with. I actually, like Mark was saying, I was looking at like hopefully doing five stages and a 3-mile course. So there's a lot of breaks in there, and it's not crazy elevation, but there are some hills. I mean, it would be boring on a flat track. But I think we'll see more and more events popping up in areas as more people. I mean, it's a testament. Matt Stinnett did the first run and gun at Rock Castle, and he got Tiger in the sport. Tiger's doing matches. I'm fairly certain all the Banus was there, right? Was Alan Carmichael, I think, may have been at that first. So you've got these guys that are part of the Heartbreak team that saw that match, said, hey, we can do this. And there's probably more I'm forgetting, but it only takes one person bringing something to an area.
Actually, it's kind of funny because he recently shared the results from that match. Like
I remember seeing that.
He had reshared the results of the match. Yeah, and if you go down through there, like he had like 59 competitors plus, or including ROs, or 60 competitors plus ROs, like 75 people total showed up. And of that 75 people, there are like 45 regular ROs now, and 10 or 15 people are empty now. Like if you light it up by people who have given back to the sport, who that was the first one they'd ever done, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy how much influence that match had.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's all it takes is one thing, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing more of them, so I'm excited by that. And if you've hung on with us this long, we're a little over an hour. Sorry we kind of went long. We try to keep these a little bit shorter, but as Tiger said, contact any of us. We hope to see you out at a match. We'll be shooting it, ROing it, generally trying to help grow the sport, and maybe the match directors forum if, when Tiger gets back on that, and hopefully I can get on that. So, just to wrap it up, once again, this episode was sponsored by Primer & Co. That's PRIMERCO.com. So check them out. Lots of great shirts and apparel. So thanks for hanging in with us. Have a good one.